Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Daybreak, South Korea proposes working-level talks with North Korea to arrange inter-Korean family reunions next month at the North's Mount Kumgang resort, after Pyongyang agreed last Friday to hold the reunions. Despite efforts to stop the latest bird flu outbreak spreading, a suspected case is reported for the first time in Korea's central Dokdo province, bringing the number of provinces with either suspected or confirmed infections to 5. Plus, the Korean stock market tumbles below the 1900 mark for the first time this year on concerns about slowing growth in China and a further reduction in US central bank stimulus. Daybreak begins now.
Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday, January 28th. I'm Choi Yusan here in Seoul. We begin with the latest on possible advancements in inter-Korean relations. Responding to North Korea's request, South Korea has proposed a date for reunions of families separated since the Korean War. But while hopes are high on the much-anticipated event taking place, there are also looming concerns that the upcoming Seoul-Washington joint military exercises could be a major hurdle. Our Hwang Sung-hee has our top story.
Families separated since the Korean War will have the chance to see each other again in mid-February if North Korea agrees to South Korea's offer made on Monday.
Considering the wishes of the separated families, we propose holding a round of family reunions at the Mount Kumgang resort from February 17th to the 22nd for 6 days.
This follows Pyongyang's surprise proposal on Friday that the reunions resume at a convenient time for Seoul after the Lunar New Year holiday, which falls at the end of this week. South Korea's Unification Ministry said the proposed dates are flexible and asked to hold working-level talks on Wednesday at the truce village of Panmunjom to fine-tune the details. Pyongyang may want a later date, sometime after the joint military drills between Seoul and Washington, which begin at the end of February. Despite North Korea's repeated calls to cancel what it views as war games, South Korea made clear that the humanitarian event and the military training exercises are two separate matters.
When we selected the date, we considered the preparation process at Mount Kumgang and the urgency of holding family reunions. The joint military drills between South Korea and the U.S. were not considered.
Millions of Koreans were separated from their loved ones when the country was divided more than 6 decades ago. Around 72,000 South Koreans are on a waiting list for a chance to meet their families one last time, but it's been 3 years now since the last reunions. If the event takes place next month, 100 divided family members from each side who are selected for last year's cancelled reunions will meet with their loved ones. However, a handful of these aging relatives have fallen ill since then, underscoring the urgency of resuming the long-suspended reunions. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
Iranian President Hassan Rouhani says he would be willing to play the role of mediator for difficult inter-Korean relations, including North Korea's nuclear program. President Rouhani made the remarks during a meeting with South Korean National Assembly Speaker Kang Chang-hee, who arrived in Tehran on Sunday to hold talks with senior Iranian officials. According to Kang's spokesperson, Rouhani added that Tehran would be able to help resolve Pyongyang's nuclear issue, given Iran's experiences in dealing with Western powers over the issue. The top nuclear envoys of the U.S. and China have reportedly been seeking ways to reopen international talks to curb North Korea's nuclear ambitions. The U.S. point man on the North, Glenn Davies, met his Chinese counterpart, Wu Da-wei, in Beijing Monday, where the two negotiators discussed the conditions under which the six-party nuclear talks can restart after a 5-year impasse. Washington is demanding Pyongyang take sincere and concrete steps towards denuclearization before returning to talks. Beijing wants to resume dialogue right away to ease security concerns on the Korean peninsula. The discussions come amid the North's recent peace offensive towards the south. After speaking to reporters about his talks in China, Davies will head to Seoul on this Tuesday and then to Tokyo later in the week. In a move sure to ignite diplomatic tensions between South Korea and Japan, the Japanese government is set to announce fresh claims to Korea's Dokdo Island on this Tuesday. A diplomatic source in Japan says Tokyo will lay out the final revised guidelines for middle and high school textbooks, which include claims to Japan's ownership of Korea's easternmost island. The guidelines will also accuse Korea of illegally occupying Dokdo. The manuals are often used as reference materials for new editions of school textbooks. Seoul's foreign ministry has long condemned the move, saying Japan must drop its unjustified claims. Authorities here in Korea are still trying to put a lid on the spread of a bird flu outbreak. Nearly 2 weeks after it took hold, the government temporarily locked down 3 provinces on Monday in an effort to stave off its advancement. But the virus continues to travel north, closer to the capital, Seoul. Shin Se-min has the latest.
An emergency quarantine lockdown to prevent the spread of the bird flu in the country was lifted on Monday evening. Disease prevention authorities put 3 provinces in lockdown for 12 hours on Monday while they sterilized all potential sources of avian influenza. That also included prohibiting the movement of animals, people, and vehicles from farms. However, despite these efforts, a suspected bird flu case was reported in Chungcheongbuk-do province, the first in the central province since the first AI case was confirmed on January 16th. A total of 14 ducks have died at a farm in the province since yesterday. The highly pathogenic A5N8 strain was confirmed in more ducks over the weekend, including on a farm in Korea's southern Jeollanam-do province. Fanning fears is that AI was found in chickens for the first time in Buyeo, Chungcheongnam-do province. That is especially concerning to authorities because chickens are more vulnerable to the virus and greatly outnumber ducks in the country. So far, more than 500,000 birds have been culled, with another 2.2 million expected to be slaughtered over the coming days. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Count President Park Geun-hye among those up in arms about the recent theft and leak of personal data. The president didn't mince her words on Monday and even chided one of her own officials for not taking the issue seriously enough. Our presidential correspondent Oh Jin-ju reports.
President Park is firm about holding those involved in the massive data leak of 20 million bank and credit card users responsible.
이번에 문제가 된 3개 카드사 이외에 다른 회사에서는 개인정보 유출이 없었는지 전 금융회사를 대상으로 철저히 조사를 하고.
Meeting with her top secretaries on Monday, the president described the leak as, quote, something that should have never happened, and ordered officials to devise measures to ensure that customers do not suffer when financial firms collect and store personal data. She also urged those firms to find other ways to identify individuals rather than relying solely on resident registration numbers, which are widely used in Korea. Other options, she says, could include the use of driver's license numbers. President Park also slammed Deputy Prime Minister Hyun Oh-seok's controversial remarks last week on the data leak, saying they only increase distrust among the public. Hyun faced strong backlash from the public and politicians after saying that, quote, foolish people always try to put the blame on others when something happens, and don't we all agree with financial firms when we provide personal information? The comments came in response to questions on whether the heads of the nation's financial watchdogs will resign over the incident.
앞으로 공직자 모두가 정말 국민을 위하고 존중하는 마음으로 임해주기를 바라면서 이런 일이 재발할 시에는 그 책임을 반드시 물을 것입니다.
President Park called for a swift passage of a bill on financial consumer protection at a provisional session of the National Assembly in February to prevent similar crises from happening again. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
In a move to curb possible follow-up crimes following the massive personal and financial data leak, prosecutors say they will detain and investigate those suspected of illegally trading personal information and will seek the maximum penalty for those found guilty. The Supreme Prosecutor's Office announced Monday that it will carry out a crackdown on all related crimes by activating over 700 investigators. The types of crimes under the microscope include voice phishing and smishing, which are financial fraud schemes using phone calls and text messages. The maximum penalty for those crimes is up to 5 years in prison or up to about $46,000 in fines. Korea has become even more dependent on China as an export destination. The country's trade ministry says exports to China accounted for 26% of Korea's export total of $500 billion last year, the highest rate ever recorded. Mobile phone parts, semiconductors, auto parts, and automobiles made up the bulk of exports to China, resulting in a trade surplus of $60.6 billion, which is higher than Korea's export surplus of $44.2 billion. Experts say Korea should take a more aggressive approach in dealing with the ever-growing Chinese market, adding it may need to reduce its dependence on China in the future, given its slowing economic growth.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiation.
President Park Geun-hye planned, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
Defense Ministry. The legislature will convene a...
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday.
Concerns over the U.S. Stimulus tapering and slow growth in China took a big bite out of Korea's benchmark stock market index on Monday. But Seoul wasn't alone as stock markets across Asia tumbled on the first day of the week. Our Kim Ji-yeon has the details.
The sell-off in global markets turned toward Asia on Monday, with stocks across the region plunging and trading as worries grow over slowing growth in China and signs that the U.S. will ease back on stimulus measures. Shares in Seoul slumped to a 5-month low to start the week. The benchmark Kospi dropped 1.5% to close at 1910 after dipping as low as 1899 at one point, its lowest level since August last year. Indexes in other countries met similar fates. The MSCI Asia Pacific Index dropped 1.5% to a 4.5-month low, while Japan's Nikkei dropped 2.5% to 15,000, the lowest closing level since mid-November, as the yen touched a 7-week high against the greenback. The declines first hit developing economies, with the currencies in Argentina, Turkey, and South Africa depreciating to new levels not seen in years. Experts attribute the sell-off from investors growing wary of tightening credit conditions in China as Beijing seeks to curb growth. The capital flight is also being fueled by expectations that the U.S. Federal Reserve will decide to taper an additional $10 billion off their bond buying programs during their 2-day policy meeting that begins on Tuesday. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych has been holding fresh talks with opposition leaders ahead of a crunch parliamentary session on Tuesday, where the president will come under serious pressure to make major concessions. The opposition has a number of demands, including the repeal of anti-protest laws and an amnesty for those detained during the last 2 months of protests. Reports say Monday's talks set the scene for a rough session in parliament, with the president's party saying it does not intend to yield ground to the opposition. Tensions are high, with Ukraine's justice minister warning protesters Monday that she may call a state of emergency after demonstrators broke into and occupied the ministry's building. The protesters eventually left, but they have vowed to return if no progress is made on Tuesday. Egypt's top military body has given Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi the green light to run for the presidency. Sisi, who also serves as defense minister, helped oust the country's first democratically elected president, Mohamed Morsi, in July of last year. He has yet to announce whether he will run, but the move by Egypt's Supreme Council of the Armed Forces is essentially seen as an endorsement for his candidacy. If his candidacy is confirmed, he is expected to win by a landslide given his popularity and lack of any serious rivals. Presidential election is expected to be held by the end of April. Korea has edged up one notch to 8th place in terms of innovation capability among 30 OECD member countries. Korea's Science Ministry, together with the Korea Institute of Science and Technology Evaluation and Planning, made the announcement on Monday. Korea claimed the top spot in terms of R&D investment in ratio to its GDP. Korea also scored highly in overall R&D investment and cooperation between industry and academia. But protection of intellectual property and the number of quoted papers per researcher were ranked near the bottom. Worldwide, the U.S. ranked number 1 in the annual Innovation Capabilities Survey, followed by Switzerland and Japan. The Korea Grand Sale is in full swing with more than 27,000 stores taking part across the country. The annual shopping festival is aimed at promoting the nation's retail industry to tourists through special deals and events. Our Polly has more.
Here in the Myeongdong shopping district in the heart of Seoul, customers from around the world crowd into local shops and stores. The 2014 Korea Grand Sale kicked off earlier this month at major tourist areas in cities across the country, including Seoul, Busan, Gwangju, and Jeju. The shopping extravaganza is marketed towards foreigners by offering exclusive sales discounts and benefits at department stores, restaurants, hotel accommodations, as well as other local companies. Nearly 120 companies across more than 27,000 venues nationwide have signed up to take part this year, including popular tourist attractions and even traditional Korean markets. It's an important time for the retail industry as it prepares to welcome a wave of Chinese tourists who have emerged as the largest group of international travelers to Korea. The Spring Festival, China's biggest national holiday, will begin at the end of this month and run through February 6 in celebration of the Lunar New Year. Businesses have already decorated their shops in bright red and put up translated signs with prices featuring the number 8, both which are favored by Chinese customers. Improving conveniences for foreign shoppers is also a focus this year. Additional translators and tour guides will be deployed to help foreigners, while free Wi-Fi hotspots will be offered to help connect them to online resources in 5 languages. The Korea Grand Sale will run through February 16th, offering visitors and foreign residents special weekly deals and cultural performances. Looking ahead, the Visit Korea Committee says they plan to continue developing the sale into one of Asia's most popular shopping events. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off with the latest news in figure skating. Now, with the Winter Games in Sochi less than 2 weeks away, we're all looking forward to watching Kim Yeon-ah go after her second straight gold medal. And apparently it's not just Korea that feels that way. Now, according to an article by NBC Sports, figure skater Kim Yeon-ah was ranked number 1 in a list of storylines to watch in figure skating. The report stated that with Kim Yeon-ah setting world records in the short and free skating program during the 2010 Vancouver Games, the big question of whether or not she can do it again made her the top figure skater to watch this year. And moving on, it's another set of events to watch during the Sochi Winter Games, bobsledding and skeleton. And on Monday, the bobsleigh and skeleton team held a media day press conference. The Korean bobsleigh team, who qualify for every event in the Olympics, isn't setting their goals too high, but instead stated that they want to finish within top 15 and do better during the Pyeongchang Winter Games in 2018. And for 20-year-old Yoon Sung-bin, who's representing the skeleton team, stated that he's not going to look forward to immediate success, but instead go after the long-term success of winning a medal during the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Games. More national team news, this time over in basketball. Now, on Monday, the Korea Basketball Association named their men's and women's national team head coach, and they're familiar faces. Now, first off, leading the men's national team will be Ulsan Mobis Phoebus' head coach, Yoo Jae-hak, who previously led the national team. The 51-year-old coach will lead the team in their first World Cup competition in 16 years in August before competing in the Asian Games in Incheon. Meanwhile, Chuncheon Woori Bank Hanse's head coach Lee Sung-woo will be leading the women's national team this year, as he's set to lead them to both the World Championships in Turkey and the Asian Games in Incheon as well. And finishing things off, while the two coaches were signed to lead the national team, one head coach in the KBL resigned from his position on Monday. After a dismal 14-25 season so far in the KBL, the Seoul Samsung Thunder's head coach Kim Dong-kwang has resigned from his position. Coach Kim, who returned to Samsung back in 2012 after coaching them from 1998 to 2004, made a successful comeback as the head coach of the team, but was set back with several key injuries to his players this season. With his resignation, Coach Kim Sang-sik will take over the head coach position. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good Tuesday morning to you. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, the weather condition was really nice yesterday, and it seemed like a lot of people were taking advantage of it. And for today, the morning temperatures will be milder, but the afternoon highs will be about 2 to 3 degrees lower in the Seoul metro area, reaching to 3 degrees Celsius here in Seoul. So please keep that in mind and dress in layers to stay warm today. But you know, that's still 3 degrees higher compared to seasonal averages. Well, some parts of the country received light rain overnight, including here in the capital, so the roads are wet this morning, so please drive with extra caution. And mostly to partly cloudy skies will turn into sunny skies in the afternoon. Now, the Lunar New Year's holiday is only 2 days ahead of us, and people should start to travel as early as this Thursday to go back to hometown. But we have AM showers on tap on Thursday in most regions, which should let up quickly. And as the day goes on, temperatures should rise and it will be on the mild side. With that in mind, here are the readings for today. The morning low in Seoul is at 0 and will get up to 3. Daegu and Gwangju will see a high of 11 and 10, while Busan should top out at 12. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju will climb up to 11 in the afternoon, Daejeon will get up to 8, and Dokdo should top out at 7, while the top temperature on Mount Kumgang will be at -2. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. Enjoy your morning commute and hope you have a wonderful day. And don't forget to join me again for another update afternoon.
And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Stay with us throughout the day as we bring you the latest headlines.